Chapter 2. The Great Question. There are moments when, for all the distractions of daily life, one comes to a standstill, and with a dazed feeling of panic or discouragement, puts to oneself the fatal question, what's the use? For the present, let us stop and listen in silence to the anguish of this question. The silence that it evokes is terrible, like the silence of night, with a clock marking the end of yet another hour. It is a question as cold as a marble tomb, and gives one a shiver of loneliness. For who can answer it? We all know that, to escape this moment of panic, we accept any answer that may be offered, and there are plenty of people willing to offer one. To the crowd, to normal people, silence is intolerable. Something must be said, no matter what, to fill the void and conceal this warning of the existence of something infinite and other. This attitude distinguishes West from East more clearly than any frontier. The Westerner, to soothe his anxiety, explores the realm of thought, reads books, compares opinions, questions other thinkers, and, in fact, looks for the answer outside himself. The Oriental, more contemplative, begins by closing his own circuit. He crosses hands and feet, and then in the little world within he listens to the resonance of the greater world without, in a contemplation which is more dreaming than thinking. And this is no mere literary metaphor. It is like the waking dream of a wild animal, which, as it lies relaxed, picks up the very slightest pulsations and reactions of the life around it. The aim is to hear within oneself the appeals, the regrets, and the warnings which are normally stifled by the activity of daily life, and to explore and clarify with courage one's secret awareness of certainties and uncertainties, desires and dissatisfaction, which in the normal routine of life we fail to formulate clearly because of habit, shame, or fear of what others will think. And yet the opinions of others are the worst excuse that we can have, for they, as they drag us along in the daily round, are simply reacting, according to their personal pattern, to the cares of the moment. In facing the drama of his own soul, a man is always alone. Indeed, this great question does involve us in a real drama. Life is only a dismal farce if the end of all our incoherent struggles is nothing but the grave. But if there is a sensible answer, if life on earth has a motive and a purpose higher than that of mere banal existence, then this motive and purpose have surely been discernible through the ages of human history. Why then has this question excited so much hatred and bloodshed, so many absurd controversies? Peasants do not quarrel about the proper season to reap or sow. The need to eat has made them obedient to the laws of nature. Man could find a similar law, a law of cosmic seasons and human epochs, if he would study the laws of his own becoming, and their expression in the successive traditions of different races. Who would maintain that the season of harvest is wiser than that of sowing, or condemn the dormancy of the seed in winter as a deplorable waste of time? But no less absurd are our disputes about the means employed by heaven or by the sages to awaken the conscience of humanity when we try to judge by our present notions of understanding the teaching suitable to another day. If we want to find the answer to our anxiety, we must first clarify it by trying to distinguish the real in it from the merely relative. And this means that we must cease to compare and condemn the points of view of ages which had a mental background different from our own. We must first leap outside all doctrines whatsoever and frankly put to ourselves the two questions which directly interest us. What is the value and aim of human life? Is there a power whose will has fixed this aim and the means of its attainment? If so, why does it leave us in ignorance of the aim, manipulating us like puppets? But if not, man is simply the plaything of natural forces and of the egotism of others, obliged, like them, to protect his own self. And in either case, why do we sometimes revolt against this self, which can never be satisfied with aspiration to a grade above its own? Can this self be in revolt against itself? If not, then what in oneself is opposing it? Can the answer to these questions be discovered within ourselves, or must we look for it outside? If we look for it in some teaching or other, what criterion shall we use to judge the value of the teaching? If our own conscience is to judge, what is this conscience to which we apply for a decision? In most men, what they call conscience is a record of ideas, impressions, and convictions put together by deliberate thought and education. But the awareness thus formed is as fleeting as the reflection of clouds in a mirror. Nor is it really our own, since it can be modified by various influences. Nothing of this composite effect will survive the dissolution of our physical body with its emotional and mental constituents. This is a cerebral consciousness, not a part of our immortal being. But how many men on earth have consciously awakened their real conscience, which would make them truly knowing and responsible? In order to speak consciously, we must first agree on words, then investigate the means to awaken this conscience. Self-knowledge. To avoid confusion, let us agree about the meaning of such words as soul, consciousness, self-knowledge, the multifarious interpretations of which bring about disputes as fruitless as those of the Tower of Babel. And unless we are to make of the human being nothing but an intelligent animal which decays in the grave, our study of the human constitution will have to include a consideration of its immortal elements, by whatever name they are to be called. And just as modern science admits that energy can exist in different states, some more degraded than others, so too should man try to recognize in himself those states of subtle energy which are his immortal element. If he knows nothing of them, he lowers himself to the condition of an intelligent animal, and attributes to his brain phenomena which really depend on his higher faculties. But if he learns to recognize them, he becomes aware of his immortal self and attains the privileges of a realm superior to that of the animal man. In this work, the animal man, with the intellectual faculties dependent on his mortal brain, is called the automaton, or automatic self. In order to keep it functioning harmoniously, the first requisite is a knowledge of the laws which govern it. The more subtle states of man are studied in Chapter 4, levels of consciousness, and their correspondences with the major spiritual traditions are given in Appendix 2, under the heading Psycho-Spiritual States.